it better to buy or to rent? What is going on, guys? Welcome into today's video. So obviously this is a topic that I don't even want to say it's debated that much, because I feel like if you ask the majority of people, if you ask the majority of whoever you're talking to, they're going to tell you that renting is a waste of money. You're throwing money away on rent, and you should always buy, always buy whenever you can afford it. And here I am, I want to shed some light on this situation. I kind of want to give my opinions on what I think of it. But first off, let me just start off by saying that when everyone has an opinion on something, when everyone is saying one thing and it just seems like a slam dunk, completely done thing, it might be in your best interest to take a second look at it. Because if everyone is saying the same exact thing, then what is the other side? Like, what does that side entail? What does that other side say? And honestly, if you do this, it can definitely provide a lot more value in life. And you might find something, you might find some sort of trend, or you might just find really anything that no one's picking up on, and it could lead to just great things, honestly, at the end of the day. So hopefully you guys get some value out of this. I know I did make a video like this before in the past, but I kind of want to make another one, and I feel like this one's going to provide a lot more value to everyone out there. If you're one of those people that does get some value out of it, please drop a like on the video. That really does help me out in a massive way. And I appreciate every single one of you that do that for me and are trying to help me out. Also, remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, because we're going to post more videos like this, more personal finance videos, and just stock analysis videos in general. So before we kind of like talk upon my thoughts on buying versus renting, and what I think is the best, and we get into all the examples and all that jazz, I kind of want to give some check marks that you guys might want to check up before you even consider buying a house. And I feel like these are very important. So the first one is the down payment. Do you have enough money for the down payment? Are you like really forcing yourself to buy a house and not rent at all? That's very important to take into consideration. Do you have enough for a down payment? And is that money that you have for a down payment actually for a down payment that you save for a down payment? Or is that eating into your emergency fund? Now, as you guys know, I really think an emergency fund, you need to have at least somewhere around a year in savings for an emergency fund, because you never know what's going to happen. 2020 is a perfect indicator that you never know what's going to happen. So is that money you're using for a down payment eating into that? If it is, you might want to consider renting, in my personal opinion. Obviously, develop your own opinions. I'm no sort of financial advisor. I'm just a random guy talking to you on the internet.
Entertainment purposes only, baby.
Anyway, so do you have enough? Is it eating into your emergency fund? And also, if you don't have enough for a 20% down payment, you're gonna have to pay PMI. And basically what PMI is, it's just private mortgage insurance. So if you default on your mortgage, then the lender's insured. That's all it really is. But if you don't put 20% down, then you have to pay it. Debt, secondly. Do you have any debt? Do you have student loan debt, car loans? Do you have any debt at all? If you do you really want to tack a mortgage on top of that? Like, is that really worth it at the end of the day? That's something you got to ask yourself. Third, your credit score. The better credit score you have, the better interest rate you're gonna get. That's a fact. You can look it up. It's very true. So do you have, like, I don't know, a 500 credit score? Or do you have an 800 credit score? That makes a difference. So maybe it might be better to rent for a little bit, build up that credit score so you can get a better interest rate. Something you got to account for. Lastly, what's your 5-year plan? Do you see yourself having kids? Are you going to need a bigger house the next 5 years? Where do you see yourself long term? Do you plan on moving out of state? Do you plan on moving in general? All these things you got to ask yourself before you even consider buying a house, in my personal opinion. So anyway, if you guys didn't guess by the way I've been talking, I am very pro rent, and I kind of want to go over why, and I'm going to give a couple of examples. But just first, I'm going to give like just a couple of brief reasons on why I'm pro rent. First of all, obviously at the end of the day, when you rent, you have more time. Something goes wrong at your home, unless it's something weird in your lease where you're responsible for it. So make sure you're reading that when you do sign a lease, that you're not responsible for any of this, because usually it is the landlord's responsibility. You have more time. So if something goes wrong, something breaks, your landlord takes care of it. All the cutting the grass and the snow removal, that's the landlord's responsibility. All those things like landscaping, landlord's responsibility, they'll take care of it. So you have more time. What does time equal? Time equals money. The more time you have, the more money you can make. It's very easy. You can do a ton of different things. You can work more. If you just want to work a job, you can start a side hustle. You can do all these things and make more money if you rent. That's one reason. I value my time a lot. As you guys hear me say all the time, time is one of the most invaluable assets that you can have, and you should cherish it because it's the one thing you can never ever get back. So that's why I think this is a very big bonus and a very big plus. Obviously, if you own a home, you got to take care of the grass. You got to take care of the snow removal. If something breaks, you got to fix it yourself. All these things that you have to take care of if you own a home. You have to ask yourself, are you ready to take on that responsibility? Are you ready to sacrifice your time in order to do these things? Now, it's going to depend on your situation at the end of the day. Obviously, if you have a family and kids, that's a completely different situation. But if you're like a single person and you're just like living by yourself, do you really need to own a home? Like, is that really something you need to do right now? Or should you be focusing your time on building assets and just building wealth overall? It might be better if you do that, but that's just my personal opinion. Again, up to you to develop your own opinions at the end of the day. 2, stock market. Okay, so real estate appreciates between 3 and 5% annually, right? So we'll take 4% here, we'll take that number. If you're lazy, you put your money in an index fund, you can see 8% on average. Some years more, some years less, but average, you'll see 8%. So you're telling me I just took that money that I'm putting, that's a down payment, putting into this property, and put it into an index fund? I'd see a 2x? I'd double my money as opposed to if I put it in real estate? Okay, Becky, okay. Anyway, that's just if you are putting your money in an index fund. Now, if you want to pick individual stocks, I think it's very achievable to see a 15 to 20% return. You can definitely outperform the market. I see so many people do this. This is definitely achievable in my personal opinion. And you don't even have to put in a ton of work. Like obviously, if you want to see 20% plus or 20%, you might have to put in a lot of work. But if you want to see, 12, 13, 15%, you can do it just by substituting that hour or two at the end of the night that you're watching Netflix, which if you do that, there's nothing wrong with it. But you can substitute that hour a night that you're watching Netflix. You can just look into companies. You can read annual reports. You can listen to conference calls. It's literally that easy if you just substitute your time and allocate it a little bit differently. Okay. Third, sideline cash. Okay. So obviously, if you have more cash on the sideline, you have cash you can deploy. If you're putting $50,000, $60,000 down on a down payment, that obviously is going to be tied up and you can't just pull that out of your house overnight. It's not going to be underneath the ground that you can just dig up and have. But you have cash on the sideline, whether that's starting some sort of business or maybe some sort of angel investment, finding a stock that you like, any of those things, you have money to deploy. Obviously, I don't like to keep cash around, because cash depreciates, obviously. I'd rather put it in assets. But having cash on the sideline is absolutely not a bad thing at all because you just have more money to deploy, and when you see opportunities, you can take advantage of it. When you have cash on the sideline, especially when the market dips, stock market that is, you're in a place of power. And then if real estate does go down for some reason, which it really never does, as we've talked about in several other videos, then you can definitely buy some sort of investment property. But basically at the end of the day, this just comes back to opportunity cost, which I made a video on, I've talked about in so many different videos. Think of it the same as if you buy like a car, right? You can buy a $20,000 car in cash, but if you can get like a 3 or 4% interest rate, take out a loan, and then put that money in an index fund, then you see obviously a better return on investment than you can just put all that money into a car and that car just depreciates over time. So you guys might be still saying after watching so far into this video, you might be saying, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. This guy's a fruitcake. This guy's a clown. Dislike, unsub. Well, Karen, shut up. We're going to go over some examples here and we're going to run some numbers. Okay. Anyway, we're going to start off with Johnny, all right? Johnny is buying a house. We're going to go with Johnny, then we'll go to Jimmy. So Johnny's buying a house. He's going to buy a $300,000 home. We're going to assume Johnny gets a 4% interest rate. We're going to say he has a pretty good credit score. If you don't have a good interest rate, or a good credit score rather, it's going to be a lot more than that. So if he's got a good credit score, we get a 4% interest rate. He puts $60,000 as the down payment, so that's 20%, so he doesn't have to worry about PMI. That's off of his mortgage. But anyway, we're going to assume that comes out to around $1,500 a month, which is probably going to be around there, I believe, if my math serves me correctly. We're going to account for 1% for maintenance. We're going to use the 1% rule, which basically just states that whatever your home is worth, so in this case, $300,000, you will calculate 1% for maintenance and repairs. Obviously, that's going to go up over time. We're going to assume for 30 years that that's a 1% flat rate. It's always going to be 1% of $300,000. So obviously, if you can do simple math, that comes up to $3,000 you have to calculate for annually. Then on top of that, property taxes. That's something you got to account for when you buy a home. That's another thing. So in this case, this is going to be dependent on which town you live in, what state you live in. It's going to depend on a lot of different things. But we're just going to assume, we're going to take the national average here of 1%, okay? So we're going to assume 1%. We're going to assume that it's just going to stay that way for the life of the mortgage, for the 30-year mortgage, okay? So another $3,000 on top of that, so $6,000 annually. In 30 years, this $300,000 home is going to be worth $975,000 with that 4% appreciation rate we talked about. We took the middle number between the 3 and 5%. So it's going to be 4%, come out to $975,000, okay? Now, on top of that, you have to think, you're probably thinking, well, $300,000, $975,000, that's more than tripling my money, right? Well, Karen, again, you are incorrect because you have to pay interest. So when all this is said and done, you're going to pay about $720,000, which comes to about a 26% return on investment. So at first glance, you might be like, 26%? That's not that bad. Again, Karen, that's about 1%, less than 1% actually, per year. So that's if you buy a $300,000 house, okay? So that's what Johnny did. Now let's take into account his good friend Jimmy, okay? So Jimmy, we're gonna assume his rent is the same exact price as Johnny's mortgage. He's paying $1,500 a month in rent. He has no property taxes, so he doesn't have to account for that. No maintenance, the landlord takes care of that. That's all set. So we're gonna go with two pathways that Jimmy can go with. He put his money in an index fund because he wants to invest that $60,000. So you can put that money in an index fund or you can put that into stocks, all right? So we're gonna say Jimmy Jimmy takes the path of an index fund, all right? So he puts that $60,000 in an index fund, just VU, any sort of S&P 500 fund, and he sees an average of an 8% return. He just leaves it there. He doesn't contribute anything to it over the 30 years, even though he probably should. He just leaves it there. In 30 years, that money's going to become $603,000 approximately. You might be saying, well, at first glance, it's like the house is going to be worth more at the end of the day. Again, Karen, that's incorrect, because this was a return on investment of about less than 1% per year. But this, he 10x'd his money. He turned $60,000 into $603,000. Again, Karen, run the numbers. It's very important to do this, okay? So he 10x'd his money as opposed to getting less than 1% per year. There's nowhere even near doubling your money here. It's only 26%, okay? That's all you saw, your return on investment. It's only 26%. Now, instead of putting your money in an index fund, let's say Jimmy wants to be a dog, okay? He wants to be a downright dog. He wants to get up at 5, 6 in the morning. He wants to read those annual reports. He wants to stay up late at night, listen to a conference call, Karen. He wants to do it, Karen. Listen to me, Karen, okay? He is ready to ride. So he's doing all this work. He's putting in all this work. He invests $60,000 into individual stocks. He never puts any more money in there, just the 60 grand, okay? He's shooting for a 20% return on investment, and if he's putting in all this work, it's definitely very achievable, Karen, I promise you. So anyway, he puts in this money. He sees a 20% return because he's a worker. In 30 years, what does that $60,000 appreciate to? What does it become? Drum roll, please. This is what this number becomes, Karen. After 30 years of a 20% return, not putting any money into it at all, never mind to see if he's contributing more to it, that $60,000 becomes $14.2 million as opposed to less than $1 million if he buys this house and does not put any work and he just buys the house. So as you can see, guys, there's more you should take into consideration. Like, you have to ask yourself, is this the best place for my money? If I put this down payment, if I put this money into this house, if I buy this house, is this the best thing for me? Am I willing to give it my time? Am I willing to put this money into this house? And is that the best place for it at the end of the day? It's not just as simple as you're throwing money away on rent. Opportunity cost is a very powerful thing, and it's something you have to take into consideration. Me personally, I really don't see a point. This is just for me, not you. I'm not giving you any sort of advice. I'm no financial advisor, but I really don't see a point for me to buy a house unless I really have a family or anything like that until my cash and cash equivalents is somewhere around $1 million. So this just means like stocks, cash and savings accounts, stuff that can be liquidated quickly. I really just don't see it. I'd rather just keep putting money into stocks and just keep building wealth that way. Obviously, at some point for me, it's going to make sense to diversify my wealth into real estate and just buy investment properties and a house, when a family comes along, those type of things. But right now, I really just don't see the point at all, to be perfectly honest with you. Obviously, something we didn't take into account here is sometimes rent can be raised over time, but still, obviously, just having that down payment, that's a powerful thing. Cash puts you in a position of power. You know me, I like to be in a position of power. Anyway, guys, in saying that, that's gonna be it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you guys got some value out of this, and hopefully it shed some light on maybe renting's not as bad as everyone makes it sound. I know it's an unpopular opinion, but hey, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. If you did get some value out of this, please drop a like on the video. That really does help me out in a massive way. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. This is your first time watching a video, welcome to the channel. Let me know down in the comments what you think about renting versus buying. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments as always, and I'll see you guys in the next video.